John writes in and asks that, would you talk about the public trust doctrine and what it means to coastal management and development in Rhode Island? Do you see it as alive and well here, or has it been eroded in recent years?
Boy, this is a trip down memory lane. I did a lot of work on the public trust doctrine when I was a lawyer in the Attorney General's office. Later on, when I was the Attorney General, I argued a case all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States on public trust law. The public trust doctrine is the doctrine that says that the seashore below the mean high tide level, wherever the waters of the oceans flow tidally, belongs not to an individual property owner, but to the public at large. There have been some legal clarifications, I guess I'd call them, that the Rhode Island Supreme Court has made to the public trust doctrine, where it's pretty well established that title has been authorized by the state to actually be passed to a private individual. There was concern that downtown Providence, which used to flow with the tide and then got filled in and had big buildings built on it, that those buildings actually might not be properly owned by their owners, that there might be a challenge to their title going back to the original public trust doctrine, and that was clarified. But other than that, I think the doctrine that there is a public right of access along the shore and that where the waters of the oceans flow and the tides flow is protected by the public trust doctrine remains a vital part of the legal and environmental structure of Rhode Island, and I think it's a very important part of our tradition and our history. It goes back to our earliest Constitution, and I think it's something we should treasure and protect.
Next question comes from Jack, who says, Rhode Island is the smallest state. What efforts are in the works to make Rhode Island a showcase or a national model for global environmental change and conservation, starting on the city and state level? How can we make that happen?
Well, I think probably the most immediate thing is the efforts that are being made to put us into the forefront on offshore wind. Rhode Island is kind of in a race with Delaware and a few other states that are pushing to get their plans for offshore wind approved and to be able to get that infrastructure built and the blades spinning and the electrons flowing. And if we're able to be first in that race, or one of the first, I think that's an important achievement for Rhode Island. Clearly, if we're able to define ourselves as a key infrastructure base for the assembly of that very, very large equipment so that it can be barged out to the locations and assembled, that would be a very important tipping point, and I think it would be hard for anybody to build something to compete. That's one of those things where if you can kind of get out there first, you can get an advantage that gets very hard for competitors to try to compete with, and you're in a position to have a very strong position in that industry. So I think that is probably one of our strongest areas. I also think that the good work of Save the Bay and our environmental community over many years has made us very sensitive to conservation, and there's been quite good work, particularly in the city of Providence, on weatherization and energy conservation that way. So Rhode Island has a strong green tradition, and this is one of many ways in which I think we're reflecting that tradition. It's a tradition we're proud of.
We received a question from Leslie, who's curious what towns are doing to help residents conserve water and what's being done with our water infrastructure.
There's a pretty extensive state-level plan that has gone on to put together a strategy for dealing with Rhode Island's particularly drinking water needs. As we develop, we begin to draw more and more on the reservoirs and aquifers that support us, and particularly in the South County area, that begins to raise challenges about the availability of water. So it's an important issue that the state has been working on. We've been working on at the federal level, trying to get increased funding to support the wastewater cleaning and the water development infrastructure that Rhode Island and that the country needs. There are there's an enormous backlog of water and wastewater infrastructure that we need to build. I think nationally, if I remember the number off the top of my head, it's a little bit north of $600 billion in backlog for water and wastewater infrastructure. I think in Rhode Island, the estimate is that we have $1 billion in projects that we need to build out in order, if we were to really build out to our full potential for water and wastewater infrastructure. We're working with the Narragansett Bay Commission. They've developed some very interesting new technologies to try to make sure that the wastewater that flows through their facility and into the bay is as clean as possible. And this has all acquired some additional urgency because these are good jobs. And if we're going to have to build this infrastructure sooner or later, I think we should build it now while people need the jobs. So I've been working from my position on the Environment Public Works Committee to try to push for more funding in this area. And we're looking at what's called a WRDA, Water Resources Development Act bill, in the committee to come up fairly soon, and I hope that we can accelerate that. But clearly America has, particularly in the northeastern part of the country, it's got very old water infrastructure. Some of it is quite decrepit. It is failing, it needs to be replaced, and now would be a good time to replace it because those are good jobs.
And for our final question today, I've had a number of constituents write in curious what they can do today on Earth Day. What small changes can they make in their everyday lives to help the planet?
Well, from the very beginning, I guess I was probably about 13 years old when Earth Day took place. I remember it, and it has always been associated with volunteerism. So I would encourage people to celebrate Earth Day by contacting Save the Bay or local environmental organizations in your city or town, find out what's going on, and spend a little bit of time today lending a hand. Help pick up along the beaches, help clean a park, volunteer at an environmental group's office, make phone calls, join together with other Rhode Islanders, supporting our wonderful environmental organizations and working with them on this day to help make a cleaner world. So I guess our time is up, so let me thank you, all of you, for taking the time this morning to participate in the first Earth Day web chat. I greatly appreciate your interest and your dedication to making our world a cleaner and healthier place. I'm very sorry that I couldn't get to all of the questions, but from the questions that came in, I've got a better understanding of the priorities and concerns of Rhode Island. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of what I've been working on and where the process stands here in Congress. So today is Earth Day. I hope you plan to get out there in your communities to lend a hand. There are numerous opportunities to get involved and help our environment not only today, but every day. And as always, if my office can be of any assistance, please do not hesitate. Contact us at 401-453-5294 or online at whitehouse.senate.gov. Thanks again, and have a great Earth Day.